Title: The Looping Hour. Sophie had always been anxious about time. Every second that passed felt like sand slipping through her fingers, leaving her with a gnawing worry about what she would miss if she didn't act quickly enough. So, when she stumbled upon the old hourglass in her grandmother's attic, she couldn't resist taking it home. The glass was cloudy and the frame was tarnished, but there was something enchanting about it. After school one day, she found herself twisting the hourglass between her fingers. The dusty glass gave off a strange shimmer as she turned it over, the sand beginning to pour out grain by grain. The light flickered, and for a brief moment, Sophie thought she saw shadows dancing in the dust. A chill ran through her, but she shrugged it off. After all, this was just an old piece of furniture. Sophie placed the hourglass on her desk and continued with her homework, but thoughts of the odd thing lingered. She decided to experiment. If this was truly an hourglass, then surely it could help her manage her time better, right? She flipped it again. Suddenly, everything changed. Lights flickered, a low hum filled her ears, and before she knew it, the world reset itself. Sophie blinked and found herself back in the moment just before the hourglass had fallen into her hands. Confused, she thought it must have been a trick of her imagination. Sophie tried to dismiss the oddness. She returned to her homework, but then she felt an insistent urge to flip the hourglass once more. As she watched the sand tumbling through glass, the shadows returned, whispering things she could not understand. She did it again. This time, the reset came quicker. She found herself playing the same afternoon over and over, a sickening thrill washing over her. The moments dripped away like the sand, but she could bend them to her will. She skipped over homework assignments, intentionally procrastinated, and avoided boring chores. The feeling of power was intoxicating. But as the days turned into weeks, Sophie started noticing adverse consequences. The town around her began to change. The trees bent in unnatural directions, shadows lingered around her home, and familiar faces now appeared distorted, their eyes glowing in the dim light. Each reset brought an unsettling feeling that something was terribly wrong. People started to grow distant, whispering harshly behind her back. One night, in a particularly looping fit of excitement, she flipped the hourglass again but without thinking. The air around her crackled with energy, and instead of resetting to the mundane afternoon she knew, she found herself in a twisted version of her home. Rooms filled with strange artifacts, grotesque paintings of faces she didn't recognize, and walls pulsing like the very heartbeat of some dark entity. The shadows grew thicker, swirling into a dark mist that seeped into her mind. As she realized her mistake, a dark voice echoed around her, chilling her to her core. "Why play with time, little girl? You think you can escape your own rhythm?" Panic set in. Sophie flipped the hourglass frantically, desperate to escape. But instead of returning her to safety, the voice grew louder, and all at once the shadows thrust her back into a timeline far beyond her own, into a place that felt cold and endless, the air heavy with despair. Days became weeks, and Sophie wandered through places that felt familiar yet twisted. Her school hallways emptied of laughter, her once bright bedroom mottled with decay. Every reset only brought her deeper into the darkness. It felt like a cruel game with no way out, forcing her into lives she had never lived but now could not escape. One day, while trudging through an ominous fog, she stumbled upon a familiar face, her grandmother. The woman looked at her with sadness in her eyes, and though she spoke no words, her gaze conveyed everything. "You have to let go, Sophie. Time is not yours to shape like clay." Those words played in Sophie's mind, the importance of time weighing heavily on her heart. Maybe it was time to embrace the moments as they were meant to be. She knew she had to break the cycle. With resolution, she took the hourglass in her trembling hands for the last time and faced the dark, swirling shadows. It roared in defiance, but she boldly declared, "I refuse to play your game any longer." She flipped the hourglass with all her might, the glass now shining brightly. The shadows spiraled into a vortex, whirling around her until her vision tunneled. When she blinked next, sun streamed through her window, and she was back in her own bed. Heart racing, she quickly searched for the hourglass, but it was gone. Instead, she found an empty space on her desk where it had once sat, a whisper of dust in its place. Breathless, she held tightly to her day, the moments no longer slipping away but instead intertwining splendidly. Her heart ached from the depth of what she had experienced, the lessons learned etched into her very being. Sophie realized time was not a game to be manipulated but a precious gift to be cherished. She was ready to make the most of whatever came next, shunning the shadows that had once held her captive. Heedful of time's true nature, she stepped into her life anew, leaving the hourglass, a relic of a darker past, forever behind.